this week we are going to be looking at social relationships and how we form those social relationships throughout our lives. And yes, we do begin to develop social relationships in infancy. Attachment occurs in infancy. And so in this unit, we're looking at emotions and peer relationships, social relationships, gender, and how that affects relationships, because I think, as we can all attest, men and women, boys and girls, form relationships differently, engage in relationships with one another differently, and those are distinct differences that God has wired into us. We are different, male and female, so we're going to take a look at that as well. So one of the first things that we'll look at in this unit of study is Erikson's stages of psychosocial development, and I want to pay close attention to those first three stages with you, and so I'll cover that with you here. You, of course, do need to read your text and become very familiar with that. Erikson's quite important, has influenced Christian education greatly in our understanding of how we are to interact with young children, teenagers, adults as well. So Erikson is not just a childhood theory, that's a theory that covers all of the lifespan. And so when we look at Erikson's stages, there are 8 of them, but we're going to focus on the first 3 here. And the first stage is birth to 1, and then the second stage being from about 1 to 3, and then the third being ages 3 to about age 6. And they're not really hard and fast time frames, but are rather general. You don't wake up on your first birthday and say, aha, now I'm in the next stage. But it's basically birth to 1. And in the birth to 1 stage, a child will either develop trust or mistrust. Erikson calls these psychosocial stages. He says that each one of these stages, there is a crisis that must be successfully resolved in order to move into the next stage in a healthy kind of way. And so we're either going to develop trust or mistrust in infancy. And there are a few words that I think are significant when we are looking at trust versus mistrust that will be helpful for you as you understand this stage. And the first word is predictability. Predictability. We help a child to develop trust when we are predictable. When the baby cries, we feed. When the baby, when the baby cries, we respond. When the baby is hungry, we feed. When the baby needs a diaper changed, we change the diaper. When we pick up the baby, we are predictably gentle. We are predictably kind. We are predictably these things, and that helps a child to gauge in that relationship and to develop trust. We can trust this person. I can trust this person because they meet my needs. Children who do not have their needs met in a consistent, predictable fashion develop mistrust. And whether we use those words or not, whether anyone would use those words or not, it is known and understood that if a child comes from a neglected, abusive kind of situation, that child develops anxiety, is fearful, anxious, and so that child cannot trust the human beings put in place to care for them. Now, if we look at this from a spiritual perspective, which I want us to do that, Erikson didn't really write this or develop this from a spiritual perspective, but I think there's application there. Trust is essential for a conversion experience when we place our trust in Christ, when we follow Him, when we give ourselves to Him, when we yield to Him. That's trust. And if a child does not develop trust in infancy, then placing oneself in a trusting relationship with Christ becomes so much more challenging. Not that it's impossible, but the road to a conversion experience, to a lasting relationship with Christ, is much more complicated for that child than it would be for a child who had very positive, loving, caring care in their infancy, and where they established really good, trusting relationships. Because then to place your trust in a Christ you cannot see, in Jesus who you cannot see, becomes easier because you have learned to trust already. So that first year of life is very crucial for one's spiritual development. Those are when those basic relationships are being formed. Birth to one. That's basic trust versus mistrust. And the strength that a child comes out of that time with is hope. There is hope. I can hope. I can look forward to these good things that are yet to come. Ages 1 to 3, that's autonomy versus shame and doubt. And anybody that's ever been in the presence of toddlers knows that they are very much, I will do this myself. I can do it. I can do it. It takes them a lot longer, but they want to do it themselves. Becoming very autonomous, putting their shoes on and off, feeding themselves, going to the bathroom. That's a big thing here. We learn to potty train in this stage, and that's autonomy. And it's really juxtaposed against shame and doubt because they're either going to become autonomous or they are going to doubt that they can be successful. And sometimes we would see a parent do something like this. If the child toddles out of their sight, they catch their breath. Where's he going? Where's he going? Like, stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, and not allowing the child to go and come and go and come and go and come, which is actually quite healthy for children, to be able to leave your wing, if you will, and go toddle off and play or do whatever. But because if we don't ever let them do that, their thought could be, there must be something out there that I'm not going to be able to handle. I'm not going to be able to handle that. Or they'd let me go. Or it's dangerous. I won't be able to handle it. And what happens if we don't ever let a child go and be successful? Go to Sunday school, go to grandma, go to spend time in the yard, go play in your room by yourself. Then when they finally do have to leave us for something like kindergarten, there's a meltdown because they've never been able to successfully navigate the world outside from under that protective wing. Now, should they be in safe, protective places? Absolutely. But when I drop my child out for Sunday school, I'm going to hope that the people that are caring for that child are going to do so in a very safe kind of way. My child is safe, but not necessarily under my wing. And so we want to let them have that sense of autonomy. Children of this age are often said to be very willful. They have a very strong will, and that's actually quite a strength. And we want to develop that in children. I will do it. I will survive. I will do it. And so some people call this a terrible twos. I call it the terrific twos because they are learning to become independent. And we want them to be independent. We do not want a 6-year-old child to behave as if they are still 1 or 2. We want them to continue to become independent of us. The next stage here, ages 3 to 6, initiative versus guilt. These children are learning that they can take initiative. They can, in fact, impact their world and their community, their families, their social situations. They take initiative. They take initiative in their play. There are things that they enjoy doing, and you can even see children at this age will begin to negotiate with you. Can I stay up another hour? Can I do this? Can I do that? As if they have some control. They're taking initiative. They have some input. And so we want to give them opportunities to do that. The strength that they're going to gain from this period of life is purpose. I have a purpose. I can do things with purpose. And so these 3 stages in their childhood are critical for their development because when they move on into their adolescence, they're creating an identity. We want them to be able to do so with a really solid social, emotional background. So birth to 1, trust versus mistrust. 1 to 3, autonomy. 3 to 6 years, that's initiative. So we want our children to trust us, to be able to function outside of our presence, and to be able to make good decisions and have purpose. Okay. We are also going to look here at attachment. Attachment occurs in infancy, and attachment happens with both moms and with dads. Attachment displays itself differently with moms and with dads. Dads tend to play a little more rough with their children. Very seldom will you ever see a daddy no, let me roll this back. Very seldom do you see a mother pick her infant child up and toss the baby 4 feet into the air and then catch the baby when the baby comes down. Actually, mothers will be panic stricken when they see fathers doing this. It's men that pick babies up and throw them up into the air. Actually, that's a really good thing for babies. I trust my daddy. I know he's going to catch me when I come down, and they squeal with delight when fathers do this while mothers are over there holding their breath. Mothers would never do such a thing. But when there is secure attachment between an infant and a mother, and there's some wonderful research that goes into this, and you will read this in your text, but when there is that secure attachment with parent or parents, mother, father, child, it gives the child a really good base to move into all of the other relationships in their life. And so helping a parent, mother, and father to see the significance of their relationship with their child for their child's continued social, emotional development. I think that's some place that the church can really have some impact, particularly as we are working with parents who are new to parenting that never had a child before. And probably the best time to get that information is before birth, not after the child gets here, but so you'll be prepared for it. So I want to talk with you just a little bit about interacting with others and how children do this. Now, clearly, babies play by themselves in the presence of other babies, but they are not doing role play at all. Babies don't do that. But the older that our children get, the more they're actually involved with their peers in play. As you have opportunity, I think it would be great for you to sit and just watch children play. Gender does make a difference when it comes to play. When children are very young, they tend to cleave unto those who are like them. Girls play with girls and boys play with boys when they're preschoolers. That's just what they do. It's no right or wrong about it. It just is what it is. And we tend to do that until we get to be a little older. If you look at a group of first graders, the girls sit at one table, the boys sit at a table. The girls do this, the boys do that. And yes, we do also play differently. Little boys really do like to build with blocks and get dirty, dig for worms, and things such as that. And if you watch girls at play, while there will be girls who will do that, certainly there will be, girls tend to have a different approach to play. It's much more relational. They like to have conversation. They actually do enjoy working and playing in the dramatic play area of a classroom, while the boys would rather be building with blocks, which doesn't mean that boys don't play in home living or the girls don't build with blocks. Certainly they do. But it's interesting to watch that kind of play. Toddlers are going to begin to engage in some social play. Toddlers, 1 and 2-year-old children will do that. But once a child gets to be around age 2 or 3 is when they really move into more cooperative kind of play. Play with children. They like to play with you, and you can look at these different stages of play. As you play with children, you can see, do they like to just play near me, or do they want to play with me? Are they going to assign roles? You know, like you be the mommy and you be the daddy, and this one over here, you can be the dog. I mean, they will actually assign you a task, a role to play. They do like make-believe play. We want to always allow children the opportunity to play. Now, children will play out whatever is going on in their world. And if you pay attention to their play, you will know their struggles, you will know their fears, you will know their joys. You will know all kinds of things about them by watching them play. I've had the opportunity to watch hundreds of children play through the years, and some of it has really been quite amusing to me. I went past a classroom one day, and there was a little girl in there. They were 4 years old. She was playing in the home living area. She was playing. There was a little boy in there. She turned to him. She handed him a briefcase, which men used to carry to work all the time. She handed him a briefcase and she said, "Here, you go to work." And just quick as this, he turned around to her and he said, "And when I get home, what are we having for supper?" And she picked up a plastic chicken leg and she said, "We are having chicken on the cob." That's apparently what they call chicken legs at her house, chicken on the cob. So, but very clearly I was seeing there, you know, mommy is taking care of dinner, or he expects that mom is going to take care of dinner. That's the wife's job, and she's sending him off to work. I went in one day and there was a little girl laying in the floor grunting very loudly, making these very pained noises, laying flat on her back with her knees pulled up. I said, what is happening here? Because she was all by herself in the floor in that area. And she turned her little face to look at me. She said, I'm having a baby. I said, well, that's pretty much how it's done right there. I don't know if she'd been watching it on TV or what, but she knew that this is pretty much how babies come into the world. One day I went past the classroom. It was Christmas. We had a stable, little creche scene there with all the little animals and the people there for the children to play with. And I heard this child very intently say, which one is God? They knew the story, just didn't know which figure was God. We find out all kinds of things about children when we pay attention to their play. So pay attention. It's going to tell you all kinds of things. Now, sometimes with little ones, particularly when they play, and I'll pretty much close with this because I know that there's lots more that we could say and would say, but this will be a very long video. So when boys and girls play when they're very little, it's not always what makes adults comfortable when it comes to gender stereotypes. Let me illustrate what I'm saying here. A couple of years ago, I had an opportunity, I'll call it an opportunity, to interact with a parent who was quite upset because their 3-year-old little boy was going into the home living dramatic play area and putting an apron on and acting like he was cooking in the kitchen. And this very much upset the mother and the father because they felt like that was a feminine role that their child was playing, which really just took a little bit of, I think, education so that they understood there are many professional chefs in the world, and those are men. Many men are professional chefs, and so that's not a female thing. And yet, on the other hand, there are times when little girls want to play with the trucks and dig in the dirt, and that's not considered by their parents to be girly enough, feminine enough. We often have parents who get a little they're conflicted about things when their preschool age son will want to put on the fairy princess costume, and he's only 2.5 or 3 years old, and really what they're responding to is glitter and all kinds of things. It has nothing to do with their sexuality, which is really where I think a lot of that fear actually comes from. Is this a precursor of things that would not be gender appropriate? So while that might be uncomfortable for us to talk about, we really do have to talk about it because it does rear its head in early childhood. And so when we look at children play, we want to provide things for them to play with that are age appropriate, that would promote play for both genders. Girls think the girl aisle in Walmart is pink and purple. If you stand at the end of the aisle and you look down it, it looks pink and purple. And that's because that's what girls like. And if you stand at the end of the boy toy aisle, it looks very different. My daughter used to say, I don't want to go down that aisle, Mommy, it scares me. All those action heroes and monster things, she didn't like that, which doesn't mean some girls do. Some boys like to cook and some boys like to do other things, and little boys are going to grow up one day to be daddy, and so knowing how to hold a doll or play with a doll, that's a precursor to taking care of young children. So let's open our minds to what could and should be in early childhood as healthy development regarding our relationships and our gender expectations. Talk to you soon.